You're just a careless accident. Those were the only words my father said to me that morning. No shouting, no heat. Just a flat, quiet statement from the man who had raised me for 26 years. I'm Sydney, and until that second, I believed the cruelest thing my family could do was pretend I didn't exist. I was wrong. Hours earlier, my mother had torn my medical file to pieces in the middle of the hospital lobby, screaming, "You're killing your sister." Strangers stopped. Nurses went still. I stood there saying nothing, watching the pages drift across the floor like ash from a fire I never started. They called it love. They called it family duty. It was neither. It was ownership. And the secret they never wanted me to discover, that my entire life had been a carefully hidden contract, was about to come out. I wasn't their daughter. I was their backup plan. What they didn't expect the day they tried to shatter me in public was that I was already done bending. They assumed guilt would keep me in line forever. They forgot I don't break for anyone, not strangers, not blood, and especially not people who only let me live so they could harvest me later. Have you ever discovered your whole existence was someone else's contingency plan? Tell me below, because what I did next rewrote everything. The shredded sheets of my files stuck to the polished floor like sad confetti from a party I was never meant to attend. My mother loomed above me, breathing hard, eyes wild with fury that could melt metal. "Do you think you can just stand there playing the wounded martyr?" She hissed, words slicing through the stunned silence. "Your sister is dying, Sydney, dying, and you're refusing to lift a finger." The words weren't fresh. They'd been sharpened for years, perfected into blades she could wield without effort. Behind the glass wall of room 311, Vera lay propped against white pillows, pale, fragile, but still wearing that familiar half-smirk. Chemo had taken her hair, never her entitlement. Her gaze locked on mine, and for one heartbeat I searched for something soft, something human. All I got was the same old message: "I'm the sun, you're the satellite." I crouched, gathering a few torn pages, not out of shame, but because they were evidence. Something real that couldn't be rewritten like every childhood story they fed me. "I didn't raise you to be this heartless, this selfish," Mom whispered, as if lowering her voice turned poison into medicine. "We gave you a life." I looked up and met her stare. "You gave me the life you thought I owed you interest on," she faltered. For the first time, her rage had nowhere to land. Then the scream came again, louder, designed for an audience. "You're letting your sister die." It bounced off every wall. A nurse by the coffee machine froze. A security guard turned. Shame crawled over my skin like insects. I didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't give her the reaction she was directing, because this wasn't grief. This was performance, and I was done auditioning. Through the glass, Vera tilted her head, the corner of her mouth lifting. Victory, ownership. The script was ancient. Vera triumphs, Sydney surrenders, not today. I walked out of that lobby with 100 eyes burning into my back. Not one person spoke up. Not one voice cut through the show. That's the thing about public executions of the soul. They don't just humiliate you, they isolate you. And isolation was my family's native tongue. By the time I reached the far corridor, the clock above the elevator read 10:42 a.m. I remember because I thought, this is the exact minute my life fractures, not when they scream. When I stop reacting, I didn't shout, I didn't collapse, I simply left. Because I finally understood something terrifying and freeing at the same time. They weren't trying to save Vera. They were proving they still owned me. I found a quiet corner near the consultation rooms, heart hammering like artillery. I opened the email I'd buried for months. National Donor Program results, confidential. Sent 6 months earlier when I still thought silence might buy me peace. The verdict was merciless. No compatibility detected. 0, not even a distant maybe. They could have known. They chose not to ask. Why ask when fear works better as a leash? I hit forward, added Dr. Hallstrom. CC'd my attorney Lorelei, subject, reconfirming 0 compatibility for the record. I stared at my own name in the signature line, Sydney Hale. Not Vera's sister, not Coraline's daughter, just Sydney. And for the first time that felt like a complete sentence. When I looked up, Dad was standing there, not charging, not yelling. Just occupying space like a monument to disappointment. He didn't say my name, he never really had. "You're just a careless accident," he said, voice level, almost tired, like he was reading tomorrow's weather. No drama. No volume, and somehow that cut deeper than any outburst. I didn't ask what he meant. That would have granted him the dignity of explanation. I let the words hit, settle, harden, but I didn't drown in them. Behind him, Vera's room glowed like a theater set. She watched without moving, a queen observing the board. I stepped around him, careful not to touch. Once that might have felt rebellious. Now it just felt like breathing. In the parking garage, my chest was tight, but my mind was crystal. 4 minutes until the ride share. Enough time to open my notes app and type 3 lines that felt sacred. Tested, October 19th. Results received, October 24th, not a match. Then, almost without permission, my thumbs added. You can't give away what was never yours to take. You can't love where you were never allowed to be a person. You can't stay where you were never truly welcome. I saved it. My hands were steady. This wasn't refusal anymore. This was evidence. I thought the worst was behind me when I left that building. I thought the truth in my phone would cauterize the wound. I was wrong. 2 hours later, Dr. Hallstrom texted, "Need to clarify a discrepancy. Can you come back today?" The words were polite. The undertone was not. I replied, "On my way." His office smelled like antiseptic and old paper. He sat behind a wide desk, hands clasped, a thick folder open like an autopsy. "Miss Hale," he started, voice gentle but heavy, "before we go further, I need to confirm something. When was your most recent genetic panel?" "October," I said. "For the donor registry. You have the results." He nodded slow, tapping his pen against the monitor. "That's the issue. We have 2 profiles loaded, yours and Vera's, and they share no significant markers." A cold tide rolled down my spine. What exactly does that mean? He turned the screen toward me. 2 graphs side by side, color-coded, no overlap. "You are not biologically related," he said quietly. 6 words that detonated 30 years of reality. I stared, waited for the joke, the caveat. "It's complicated, nothing came. I'm adopted." The word felt foreign in my mouth. The data strongly indicates that, yes, we double-checked. My first feeling wasn't freedom. It was a darker thing, recognition. Every dismissive glance. Every casual "we didn't have to keep you." Every time affection felt transactional. It all clicked into place. They knew. They always knew. I was never their child. I was their spare parts department. "I'll need everything in writing," I heard myself say, voice steady and strange. "Printed. Notarized, all of it." Of course, he answered. "And Sydney? What was withheld here violates multiple ethical statutes. You have full support from legal if you choose to pursue it." I walked out clutching the folder like armor. My phone buzzed, Mom calling. I let it ring. The hospital sounded too loud now, too alive. Laughter from a distant corridor felt obscene. I stopped at a window overlooking the parking lot, pressed my forehead to the cool glass, and whispered the only truth left. It was never about saving her. It was about keeping me indebted forever. But they buried the wrong thing. Truth doesn't decay. It waits. I turned, spine straight, and walked back toward the press room where Coraline was still holding her little gratitude gala, live-streaming a version of events that erased me completely. The banner still hung. The cameras still rolled. Security saw my badge and let me through. I stepped to the podium calm as winter. "I'm only taking a moment," I said into the microphone. No one moved. I set the folder down, opened it deliberately. "My name is Sydney Hale. You didn't hear it today, but it matters." I held up the first page, official seal gleaming. "This is the donor registry result, dated 6 months ago. 0 compatibility. This," I raised another sheet, "is a forged consent form submitted under my name without my knowledge. And this," I tapped the stack, "is proof my mother received the negative result months ago and concealed it from every physician involved." A murmur rippled outward. Cameras flashed like lightning. "I was adopted," I continued, voice clear and never told. "They kept that secret so they could pressure me into donating an organ to someone who treated me like an accessory her entire life. When biology failed, they tried guilt. When guilt failed, they tried forgery." Gasps, whispers. Then the sharp crack of Coraline's facade breaking. She rushed the stage. "Lies, she's unstable. This is revenge." I turned, unflinching. "No. This is documentation." I lifted the stamped registry letter high. "Unlike the signature you faked, this one survives courts." A reporter shouted, "Is this about revenge or justice?" "Neither," I answered. "It's about ending the silence." I stepped down. Behind me, Coraline's knees buckled. She hit the floor hard enough to silence the room. Dad lunged toward her, voice lost in the rising storm of questions. On the monitor, Vera's live feed cut to black. Cameras followed me all the way out. My heels struck the tile like bullets. No one tried to stop me. They finally understood they never could. By the time I reached sunlight, my hands were steady. I called Laura. "Send everything. Press packets first, then lawsuits." She exhaled like someone who'd been holding her breath for years. "You just burned the whole house down, Seed." "Good," I said. "Let them warm themselves with the truth for once." 7 days later, my name is no longer background noise. It's headlines. Adopted woman exposes forged consent in organ donation scandal. Hospital launches full ethics investigation. I stopped reading comments. This was never about likes or villains. It was about daylight. Coraline is under psychiatric hold. Dad hasn't spoken publicly, his silence finally honest. Vera was discharged yesterday. No more curated scripture posts, just quiet and me. This morning I sat on my balcony with black coffee while the city woke up beneath me and the air tasted like it belonged to me. At 4:45 p.m. yesterday, a text from Vera, "Can we meet? Just us." I went. Not for reconciliation, for closure. She sat on a bench outside the cancer center, hoodie up, hospital socks still on. When I sat, she didn't look at me right away. Eventually she said, voice small, "They only kept you in case I ever needed a spare." The words landed cold and weightless because I already knew. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she added. "Good," I replied, because I'm not selling it. No yelling, no cinematic exit, just two strangers finally saying the quiet part out loud. The next morning I filed to legally drop their surname. Sydney Hale, chosen, not inherited. That night an envelope waited in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a handwritten note, "Hi Sydney, I'm adopted too. I saw your story. I didn't know I was allowed to say no. I'm 17. You just handed me a future I didn't know I could have. Thank you for showing me my body belongs to me." No name, just proof that pain can turn into someone else's oxygen. So if you're reading this and you've ever been told your worth is a debt you owe the people who hurt you, listen. Your value is not negotiable. Your voice is not too loud. And you are never alone. Tell me in the comments. What truth would you finally say if fear let go of your throat? Because your story might be the air someone else is gasping for. And if you believe stories like mine matter, stay, subscribe. Be part of a place where silence is no longer the price of survival. It's simply a choice none of us have to make again.